Today, let's talk about the Common Body of Knowledge or CBK security domains. So, over 20 years ago, many organizations recognized that geographically distributed interconnected systems were much more vulnerable than mainframe systems with minimal connectivity. At that time, few educational institutions offered any form of information security curricula, letting alone the academic degrees. So, this deficiency led to the establishment of the International Information Systems Security Certification Consortium or ISC. So, ISC is a non-profit organization with the purpose of educating and certifying information security professional. So those with ISC certifications are based on a compendium of information security topics called the Common Body of Knowledge or yung CBK na tinatawag. So the CBK is the critical body of knowledge that serves as a common framework of security concepts, definitions, and principles that foster understanding of best practices among those engaged in activities related to information assurance or security. So the CBK categorizes security issues in terms of its element in the following domain areas. So we have 10 domain areas here that is being tackled in the common body knowledge. Yan, common body knowledge. So the first one is the access control systems and methodology, followed by the applications and system development security, then business continuity planning and disaster recovery planning, cryptography, information security and risk management, legal regulations, compliance and investigations, operation security, physical security, then security architecture and models, and telecommunications and network security. Okay po. So, yan yung mga i-discuss natin on the following slide. The 10 common body of knowledge or the CBK. So, we have here the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So, the CIA, yan, are the core tenets of information security and are widespread over all the domains of the common body of knowledge. So when we say confidentiality, so it is the measure of the secrecy of information. So an organization determines how data are to be used and assigns a confidentiality level to that data. So if transmitted from one place to another, it will ensure that the data were not observed by those who are not entitled to know about those contents. Okay? So, yun yung ibig sabihin natin ng confidentiality. Whereas, when we say integrity, it ensures that the information is accurate and reliable. So, if transmitted from one place to another, it ensures that the data were not tampered with. Okay? Or there are no alterations or modifications that is being made. Okay? When availability, okay, it deals with the ability of users to access the information. So, it is commonly achieved through access control systems, redundant links and servers, and also with policies that take natural disasters into considerations. So, now let's proceed with the first domain of the common body of knowledge, which is the access control systems and methodology. So, by the CBK definitions, access control refers to a collection of mechanisms that allow the user or the administrator of a system to have a directing or restraining influence over the behavior, use, and content of the system. So, consequently, access controls are enforcement mechanisms that determine whether an action is authorized to occur. So, access control methods determine what a user can access in the system. So users' actions can be monitored for accountability, whereas there are two main types of access control methods. So the first one is the discretionary access control or the DAC. Okay, so this is an access control decision that is made by the individual user. So for example, the user will create a file and then he or she will define an access control list specifying who can access the file and how much accessibility yung ibibigay niya. So, yung sinasabi natin how much accessibility is ito yung pag-read, write, and etc. Okay? Or any other features or actions that could be made with the file itself. Okay? So, yun nga, how much access each user can have. Then, when we say mandatory access control or the MAC, okay, it is an access control that is being imposed by categorizing resources and users based on a predetermined set of established criteria. So, for example, in military and government organizations dealing with sensitive data, okay, the users and resources may be organized into the following categories. Okay, dito papasok yung mga unclassified, confidential, secret, and top secret. Okay, yung mga binibigay nila na category dun sa mismong file or dun sa mismong information. Okay po. So, based on these two broad types of access control, there are several other methods that have been developed to make them more comprehensive. And some of these are described below. So, ito yung mga tinatawag natin na lattice-based, which defines the relationships within a MAC system. Yung MAC na binabanggit natin dito and DOC-based system is ito. Okay po? Yung access control method. So, when we say a lattice-based, okay, it is usually groups exist within each category and the access control method determines how control flows from one group to another. Then when we say rule-based, okay, again, it is a MAC-based system which uses a strict set of rules but require a lot of management and administration. Then pag sinabi naman nating role-based, okay, it is a DAC-based system or a DOC-based system where various roles are defined and users assigned to these roles. Okay, so permissions are now based on the job roles rather than by a specific user. So, example of roles include, ito yung mga system administrators, backup operators, and printer manager. Okay? Then, the last category or method is the access control list or the ACL, which is often used to define rules in firewalls and routers based on IP addresses. Okay? It is also used by some operating systems to define the accesses between the users and the resources itself. So, the CBK access control domain not only focuses on access control mechanism, but it also focuses or it also includes the identification and authentication mechanisms and techniques, administration of access control mechanisms, and mechanisms or methods for attacking information systems. So, the second domain in the common body of knowledge is the applications and systems development security. So, by the CBK domain definition, this domain refers to the controls that are included within systems and application softwares in a centralized and distributed environments. Okay? And the steps used in their development. Okay po? So, applications kasi is vulnerable through buffer overflow attacks. Okay? O kaya mga cross-sites attacks. O kaya naman is mga SQL injections attacks and so forth. So, software security should be considered at the beginning of the design and implementation phases. Okay? So, kayo as a developers, okay, you should understand how to produce a secure, stable, and efficient software that is not vulnerable to known common types of attacks. Okay? So, development projects being under time pressures is often overlook the security aspect or hindi na talaga siya nagagawa. Okay, iilan lang sa mga, for example, yan, yung mga nagtitesis or mga nagde-develop ng system, yung binibigyang pansin or halaga yung mismo security part ng kanilang mga system. Kasi nga, ayun, na-overlook na o kaya naman is kulang na yung mismong time. But, of course, being a developer or a developer, kailangan is, isa sa mga binibigyan yung pansin is yung mismong security nung application na gagawin ninyo. It's because you are going to collect a data and you are going to produce an information. Okay? And you cannot say that your system is a reliable or would have an integrity if you don't have any security measures included in the creation of your system. Okay? So, take note of that because, yun nga, it is really important and it's actually part of developing a system. So the CBK applications and systems development security domain not only focuses on internal security mechanism, but it also includes the following. So you have here the data warehousing and data mining, risk associated with various software development practices, vulnerabilities within software components, and malicious software used for attacking information system. So the third domain will be the business continuity planning and disaster recovery planning. So this domain addresses the continuation of the business in the event of a major disruption to normal business operations. Okay po. In the event kasi na magkaroon ng natural disaster or major calamity, the entire company resources could be lost. Okay po, pwede kasi yung mawala. Okay? Kasi minsan dyan papasok yung mga attacks during that calamity or natural disaster. So whether the company survives or not, it depends on how the company prepares for those types of events. And having a disaster recovery plan, okay, it will determine what is required to keep the business functioning. Okay, so take note of that. There should be a disaster recovery plan which will determine what is required to keep the business functioning. So these items should be prepared ahead of time, and the procedures required to get the necessary data back online should be thought of. So this plan is a short-term plan wherein its objectives includes the following. So you have here the protecting the organization from major system failure, minimizing the risk to the organization from delays in providing services, then guaranteeing the reliability of standby system through testing and simulation. And last one is minimizing the decision making required by personnel during a disaster. Okay? When we say a business continuity plan, it is a long-term plan that looks at the recovery from the beginning to end. It incorporates the disaster recovery plan and takes over when the threat occurs. Okay? It is really essential to keep the recovery plan up to date, okay? Because you are going to monitor critical assets and anything regarding dun sa mismong business, okay, to keep that business functioning. So this will help reduce damage in the long run. Okay, yun po yung purpose of having a business continuity plan. Okay, and the major components of this process are the following. So you have here the scope and plan initiation, wherein you need to create the scope and define the parameters of the plan. You have also here the business impact assessment, okay, to understand the impact of a disruptive event. And last is the business continuity plan development, which include plan implementation, testing, and maintenance. Yung plan approval and implementation is another component ulit, okay, that involves getting the plan approved and making the people aware of the plan. Okay. Also important is implementing a maintenance procedure for updating the plan is also needed. Okay. The next will be the cryptography. Okay, so by the CBK definition, this domain addresses the principles, means, and methods of disguising information to ensure its integrity, confidentiality, and authenticity. Okay, wherein the data are encrypted and validated to ensure that the data remains secure and intact. And only those authorized people can access the encrypted data through the process of decryption. Whereas cryptography can also provide non-repudiation or irrefutable proof that a message was created by a given person. Okay? And there are two types of encryption that is as of now is existing. These are the symmetric encryption and the asymmetric encryption. When we say symmetric encryption, okay, it uses a shared key to both encrypt and decrypt the data. Okay? Ang best example ng symmetric encryption is yung I don't sure if papasok dito yung secret messages ng Facebook or ng mismong messenger. Okay? Wherein meron lang kayong iisang key na ginagamit. Okay po? Na hindi siya nagkakaroon ng another key pa para i-decrypt yung mismong data. Okay? Yun yung kasi pag sinasabi natin symmetric encryption, you are using a one key na pinagsasaluhan ng dalawang tao that is involved in that data. Okay? Then, meron kasi yung tinatawag na asymmetric encryption wherein it will uses two keys, a public key and a corresponding private key. Okay? Wherein, before the data kasi is being transmitted, the data are encrypted with the recipient's public key. Okay? And then, yung encrypted data na yon can only be decrypted with the recipient's private key. Okay? And usually, if I'm not mistaken, the asymmetric encryption is being used in the WhatsApp. Okay po? Yun. Yun yung isa sa mga applications. Actually, I just only have a few knowledge regarding the applications that uses the encryptions. Okay, kasi hindi naman ako palaging nagamit na iba pang applications aside from the messenger and yung mismong normal na messaging applications. But if you have any other ideas with the applications that uses this kind of encryption based on the definition, we are gladly if you're going to share it with us. Okay po. So the CBK cryptography domain, okay, not only focuses on system internal security mechanism but includes the following also. Okay. So we have here the infrastructure for the management of public keys, allowing the individual to obtain valid keys and know when the keys are no longer valid. Okay, we have also here the risk associated with various encryption algorithms and how they may be deployed. And lastly is techniques used for attacking the use of cryptography. Okay? So the fifth domain is all about the information security and risk management. Okay, wherein this domain is concerned with the identification of an organization information assets and the development, documentation, and implementation of policies, standards, procedures, and guidelines that ensures confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Kung mapapansin niyo, we are always talking about the CIA, okay? Because the CIA is really important here in the common body of knowledge. And each domain should abide with the CIA. Okay po? So, management tools, okay, such as data classification, risk assessment, and risk analysis are also used to identify the threats, then classify them, then consider their vulnerabilities so that effective security controls can be implemented. Okay? Whereas, itong domain na to na pinag-usapan natin, which is the information security and risk management, also includes personnel security, training, and security awareness. Okay po? Whereas, the organizations need to determine the items, okay, the items to be protected, see how they are accessed, and then selects control and audit the users who operate. Okay? So, ano ba yung mga binabanggit natin na threats sa mismong infrastructure natin? And what is the risk? Okay? You need to consider the confidentiality, integrity, and availability tenets of security. And any physical damage or interruptions in providing system services affect the availability. Okay? Whereas pag unauthorized disclosure of information naman breaches, okay, it will breach the confidentiality. And then any loss of control over the system compromises the integrity. And if there is a theft, okay, it affects all three aspects na binabanggit natin, which is yung CIA nga. Okay po? Then next we have the legal regulations, compliance, and investigation domain. Okay, this is the sixth domain na binabanggit natin, nakasama dun sa mismong CBK or the common body of knowledge. Okay, whereas this domain addresses computer crime law and regulations, investigative measures and techniques that can be used if a crime is committed. Okay? Methods to gather evidence and the ethical issues and code of conduct for security professionals. Okay? Yun po yung tinutukoy natin sa legal regulations, compliance, and investigation. Wherein kasi intruders can access private data, destroys information, steal intellectual property, and so forth. So, the owner of the system should report the crime, making sure that no evidence is destroyed or lost. Okay? Federal, state, or civil laws may be applicable depending on the crime committed. Even if the attacker is identified, okay, it is important not to attack the attacker. Okay? Attacking an attacker is considered illegal by many nations and should not be engaged in. Okay? So, computer forensics is the field of computer crime investigation and deals with the collection of information from computer system that will be admissible in the court of law. Gathering, control, storage, and preservation of evidence are crucial. Okay, so the evidence must be relevant, legally permissible, reliable, and properly identified, and preserved to be admissible. Okay, so we have here legal evidences na it could be classified in the following types. Okay, ito yung mga binabanggit ko kanina na dapat is maprotektahan in case that there is being a crime committed. Okay, the evidences should be intact, okay, not destroyed or lost. Okay, so we have here the best evidence. Pag sinabi nating best evidence, ito yung original or primary evidence rather than a copy. A secondary evidence naman is ito yung copy ng mismong evidence. And then pag sinabi naman nating direct evidence, ito yung information gathered through a witness. Okay, ang tawag natin doon is direct evidence. Then conclusive evidence naman is ito yung mga incontrovertible evidences. Okay po. Ito na yung tawag dito na, ito na yung sinumpaan mo na, or ito na yung mismong salaysay na meron ka nang sinasabi na totoo lahat ng binabanggit mo. Okay? You have also here the expert opinion. Okay? Expert opinion is coming from an expert. Yung mga tao na expert dun sa mismong field na yon, or expert dun sa involvement dun sa mismong crime na yon. Then we have also the circumstantial evidences wherein it is the inference of information from the other facts. Okay? Ito yung mga hinuha mo lang based dun sa mga natanggap mo or nakuha mong facts na maybe ganito, ganito, ganyan. Okay po? Then we have also the hearsay evidence, or ito yung mga computer-generated records. Okay? So, incident planning addresses the handling of malicious attacks through technical means and should address the following questions. Okay? So, ito yung mga usually nagiging tanong. Okay? For you to handle the malicious attacks through a technical means. So, what is the incident? How should it be reported? To whom it should be reported? When should management to be informed of the incident? What actions to take if an incident is detected? Who handles the response to an incident? How much damage was caused by the incident? Then, what information was damaged or compromised by the incident? Then, how are follow-up and review after the incident handled? Sorry, typographical. So, next we have the what additional safeguards can be instituted as a result. So, itong domain na to ng CBK also includes considerations of software licensing and software piracy along with the import and export laws and issues. Okay, kasama yan dito. Legal regulations, compliance, and investigations. Yung mga software licensing. Okay po. Next, we have the operations security. Okay, so this domain identifies the control over hardware, media, and operations personnel with access privileges to any of these resources. Okay, auditing and monitoring mechanisms are used to identify security events and report the information appropriately. Okay? At para makapag-build ng isang defensive system, okay, you need to put yourself in your opponent's role. Okay? And see where the vulnerabilities are. Okay po? And determine the resources that need to be protected and what are the privileges that need to be restricted. Okay? Kasama yan doon sa mga kailangan mong tignan. Okay? Kasi for example, syempre kulang ng tao and you really need to know the security of your system. So, you must put yourself into the opponent's role. So, the following key principles have to be considered. Okay? So, dito nga papasok yung pag-identify ng critical information, analyzing threats, assessing vulnerabilities, risks, and you're going to apply countermeasures. So, etong part ng operation security kasi, you must use indicators collected via log files, auditing, and monitoring. At yung mga katulad pa nun. Okay po. Then, other source of information gathering kasi could come from the intrusion detection programs where administrators can look for anomalies. Okay? Then, penetration testing system can also be utilized that play the role of an attacker to find a way into the system. Okay? So, yung the operations security controls is being categorized with the following. So, you have here the preventative controls wherein to lower the impact of unintentional errors on the system and prevent unauthorized access to the system. Ito yung mga kailangan gampanan or kailangan gawin, mga preventative controls. Next, we have also the detective controls to detect errors once they occur. Then we have also here the corrective controls to mitigate any loss through data recovery procedures. And we have also here the recovery controls to allow restoration of operational capabilities during or after the occurrence of a security breach. Okay? Etong mga binabanggit kong controls na to is ito yung mga written controls. Okay po? Well, if there is a software to be used para ma-apply itong mga controls na to, it could be possible. But usually, itong mga controls na to, these are the written. Okay po, written controls. Ito yung, for example, is if you still remember yung mga rules and regulations inside the laboratory ng mismong campus natin. Okay po, yun, papasok yun doon. Isa yun sa example nitong mga control na to. Okay po. Monitoring and auditing then is an integral part of the operations security. Okay po? Wherein monitoring includes scrutinizing for illegal software installation, mga hardware faults, and for anomalies. Okay? And yung mga tools na ginagamit for monitoring are yung intrusion detection, penetration testing, and violation analysis. Okay? Pag sinabi naman natin na auditing, okay, auditing allows the review of patterns of access, discovery of any attempts to bypass, and protection mechanism and security controls. Ito yung auditing is same with the usual na ginagawa ng isang auditor or yun nga yung taga-audit. Ang ginagawa nito pagdating dito sa operation security is ito yung magta-track. Okay, ito yung mismong tracker. Okay, kung kailan ba siya pinilit na i-access. Okay po. Kung meron bang mga bypass na nangyari. Okay. For example is yung sa paglalagin sa Facebook, 'di ba? If you have open or sabihin natin na inon mo yung feature mo ng two-way method, okay? Or authentication, two-way method of authentication. There is a auditing na nangyayari. For example, is biglang nag-lag sa may nangyaring logging in sa ganitong device. Okay po. Yun, in-audit yun. Okay po. Wherein, di ba, tinatanong ka if this is you or not. If not, kindly click this button para ma-report. Okay? Then, yun yan, magkakaroon na ng change password and then lahat ng active sessions mo is ilalag out. Okay po. Ganun yun. Ganun yun sa mismong monitoring and auditing. Okay? Then, another critical part of this domain is the maintenance of the antivirus and other anti-malware capabilities. Okay? Dito rin papasok yung personal training and resource protection activities. Okay? Security and fault tolerance technologies are also included in this domain. Okay? Along with the security standards, operational compliance to the regulations, and concepts of due diligence and due care. Okay po? The next will be the physical security. Okay, sa physical security naman, okay, this domain addresses countermeasures that can be utilized to a physically protected organization resources and sensitive information from physical threats. Okay? Wherein, kasi yung pagpaprotect from a remote intruders is actually not enough. So, there should be steps na kailangang i-take to protect assets that can be accessed physically. Okay? Example ng mga threats to a physical security includes emergencies. Okay? Ito yung mga fire, building damage, utility loss, water damage, and etc. Okay, dito rin papasok yung natural disasters such as earthquakes, floods, and kung ano pang naalam ninyo na natural disasters, and yung mga human intervention such as yung sabotage and vandalism. Okay po. Controls for physical security include administrative control and physical and technical controls. Okay po. So, pag sinabi natin administrative controls, okay, it will involve facility requirements planning, facility security management, and administrative personnel control. Sa facility requirement planning, it will deals with the planning for physical security controls in the early stages of this site construction. Okay, di ba part kasi yun if you are going to build a house, or sabihin natin na hindi lang company, mismong house, okay, there should be a planning with regards dun sa mismong security measures dun sa mismong bahay mo. Okay, for example, choosing and designing a secure site, okay, part din yun. Then, audit trails, okay, and emergency procedures falls under facility security management. Okay. Then, administrative personnel control includes pre-employment screening, ongoing employee checks, and post-employment procedures. Okay. Environmental and life safety controls are also required to sustain the personnel's or computer's operating environment. And also, it will include the following such as yung power, fire detection, heating, ventilations, air conditioning, at kung ano pang may kinalaman dun sa environmental and life safety control. Okay? When we say naman physical and technical controls, okay, it relates to the areas of facility control requirements, access control devices, intrusion detections and alarm, inventory control, and media storage requirement. Okay? Pag sinabi natin, yung mga storage media kasi, okay, it should not be properly destroyed when no longer needed. Okay? Formatting a disk once doesn't destroy all the data, and the disk should be overwritten or formatted at least 7 times. Okay? To conform to object reuse standards. Okay? For example, di na magagamit itong ganitong hard disk, you need to format it 7 times. Ito, based on the CBK. Okay? Based on the common body of knowledge. Okay po? Para mag-conform to object reuse standard. Okay po? So, that's the physical security. So, dito naman tayo ngayon sa security architecture and models. Okay? Sa security architecture and models, it depends now dun sa mismong tagagawa. Okay? Kasi meron silang sinusunod dito na models na wherein they need to apply it depending on the need of the business or yung mismong type ng business or ng mismong company. So, by the CBK definition, etong domain na to will spans the concept, principles, and structures and standards used to design, implement, and monitor and secure operating systems, equipment, networks, and applications, including the controls used to enforce various levels of CIA. Okay? And some of the architectural models that define information security are etong Bella Padula model, Biba model, Clark-Wilson model, and access control list model. Okay? Wherein they differs dun sa kung anong part ng CIA yung kanilang mas binibigyan ng focus. Okay po? For example, etong Bella Padula model, okay? Etong model na to, okay, they are more likely strict with the confidentiality ng mismong data. Wherein dito papasok yung no write down and no read up model. Okay, it's similar with it. Okay? Then sa Biba model naman, they are more focused on integrity ng mismong data naman. Okay po. So it really depends on what kind of model to be used. Okay? At kung ano talaga yung mas pinoprotektahan dun sa mismong tenets of information security or yung CIA na binabanggit ko kanina. Okay po. Then, part din ng security architecture and models, okay, ito, yung functions and capabilities within operating system for state management, memory management, kernel, and monitoring activities. Okay, dito rin papasok yung mga methodologies such as TCSec, and then ITEC, and then CC. Okay, then we have also here the application and system software problem, logic flaws, and design implementation errors that create opportunities for system compromises and attacks. And lastly, dito nga papasok yung certification and accreditation, which is really important in a business para mag-proceed pa sila at magtuloy-tuloy pa sila sa kanilang business. Lalo na kung they are dealing with the data information of the users. Okay, if they are collecting it. Okay, there should be a certification and accreditation. Okay po. And the last domain is all about the telecommunications and network security, wherein this domain encompasses the structures, transmission methods, transport formats, and security measures which are going to be used to provide integrity, availability, authentication, and confidentiality for transmissions over private and public communications, networks, and media cabling. Okay? Well, actually, this is the largest and most technical domain dun sa mismong common body of knowledge. Okay? Because it includes the OSI model. Okay? With the 7 layers of functionality. If you still remember the OSI model during your computer networks and security, or kung hindi pa, okay? At ang OSI model kasi, this is the standard. Okay? Kung paano ba nagtatransmit yung data from the sender papunta ng recipient. Okay? Ito yung mas detailed. Okay? Detailed na process nung regarding dun sa mismong data communications. Okay, dito ngayon kasi papasok yung physical, data link, network, transport, session, presentation, and application layers. Okay po. Then, part din ng telecommunications and network security is yung mismong LAN, enterprise or metropolitan or wide area network. Itong una na to is, this is the type of network. Kung gaano ba kalaki yung sakop na magiging network. Okay po? Yung local area network, usually it refers dun sa mismong room lang, okay? Sa mismong bahay nyo lang, or yan, computer shops lang. Pag enterprise na, is ito na papasok yung mismong business, yung mismong company. Metropolitan naman is ito, yung buong metro, yung buong city. Okay po? Then, pag wide area network naman, ito na yung mas malaki pa doon. So, it deals with the provincial na. Okay po? So, we have also here the common network devices such as yung routers, bridges, switches, and firewalls. Then we have also here the network security protocols and common forms of attacks against network infrastructures. Okay? Sir, bakit po nasabi na ito yung largest and most technical domain in the CBK? It's because most of the data and information is being sent throughout cables, throughout the network, throughout the internet. Okay po? Kaya ito yung sinasabi na largest and most technical domain dun sa mismong common body of knowledge. Okay po? So, let's now summarize yung mismong common body of knowledge. Okay? Yung mismong discussion natin. So, to summarize this, okay, the common body of knowledge provides an organized delineation of the major subjects that impact information security. Okay? Whereas the CBK, in fact, addresses all the aspects of security discussed at the beginning of the section. Okay? Yung binanggit ko sa inyo nung una. However, okay, the CBK does not provide guidance on achieving sufficient protection for an organization's asset. So, it really depends now on the implementation or yung mismong yun nga, magiging decision maker regarding this one. Okay? Sa domains kasi ng CBK, okay, it is not actually organized to facilitate establishing an enterprise set of processes that will ensure information security is really achievable. Okay, so it really depends pa rin talaga on the people who is working on the CBK. Okay, nakuha po. So, that's it for the CBK or the common body of knowledge. Hope that you have been understand everything that I have said regarding each of the domains that is part of the CBK or the common body of knowledge. So, if you have any other questions, kindly message me on the platform na ginagamit natin. Yun, dun sa mismong Discord, because that is your only way or means for you to contact me aside from the email itself. Okay po. So, that's it. Let's call it a day. Thank you for listening.